because of our own procedures than anything else.
You went outside a procedure and then all hell's break loose. There's nothing written anymore. No more procedure for it. And
Exactly,
stuck, right?
Yeah. And I said, okay, now I have the box here.
You ran away with it.
He said, Philip, do you know where I'm normally supposed to be now? I said, no. I should be with my family in the Alps skiing.
That raises the question, should you do an upgrade or a major change in such a shutdown period? It's maybe not a good idea.
Yeah.
Welcome to Cisco Tech Stories, a podcast with real-life stories from real-life engineers. Your hosts are Nicholas and Tristan. In today's episode, when all procedures break down, that's where tech goes above and beyond. Whether it's by delivering boxes, hacking phones, or getting people to their ski vacation.
Hello and welcome to this new episode of Cisco Tech Stories, where we tell stories from Cisco engineers from all around the world. Today with us, we have Nicholas, a wireless technical leader, as well as Philip Smeuninx, a principal engineer in the collab world. Hello, Philip. Hello, Nico.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So, Philip, can you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you are doing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So my name is Philip Smeuninx. I'm a principal engineer in the collaboration TAC technology group. And I joined Cisco long time ago, I must say. I'm not going to reveal my age and when that exactly was. But when I actually joined Cisco, and before I actually worked for WorldCom and Alcatel. But when I joined Cisco, it was just the same time that we acquired a company called Celsius. And some of you may know that that's a company who actually built Call Manager. So, after we acquired that company, we obviously had to form a TAC team to support that product. So I took the opportunity to join that TAC team. And since then, actually, I've been staying on collaboration. Yeah, so I've seen the whole solution evolving to a standalone product to unified communications, with all the different applications and services, and then today, obviously the cloud, where we're having the same products or services, but now in the WebEx cloud. And firstly, I've been troubleshooting and providing support, escalation support of all of these products. But lately, today I'm part of a smaller team called TAC Engine, where I'm focused on building capabilities for our TAC engineers, so they can resolve the issues reported by our customers much faster and more efficiently. So those are automation capabilities, but also tools that help our engineers to diagnose issues faster. But many of these tools we're also externalizing for our customers, and we're also directly integrating these with some of our BU products, with some of our collaboration products. So yeah, today I'm still involved in support, but I'm more focused on development, architecting solutions, and helping our customers and our engineers to solve the issues faster than ever before.
Cool, thank you.
So, Philip, what stories do you have for us today? I think they're not so technical, but they revolve around the tech culture, right? How we can sometimes go outside of the process and go the extra mile. Tell us more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So one of these stories is actually about that. What we sometimes have to do to help our customers on their reported issues, and sometimes they're not technical at all. But it requires us as well to go above and beyond to satisfy our customers. And the story is about, I was at that time, I think I was a technical leader, still very much focused on helping our engineers on escalations. And one day this engineer comes to me and he tells me, Philip, I have this problem already for a couple of weeks, and it doesn't seem we're getting to a solution. And I was thinking, okay, already for a couple of weeks, so this must be a very complex technical problem. So I said, yeah, let's look into this and let's see what we can do about it. So he then explained to me that it actually was not so much technical, but what happened is that this customer, they were running their unified communication application call manager on a UCS box, and they had a problem with the UCS chassis, which had to be replaced. Yeah, so that means only the chassis had to be replaced, but all the components inside, they were still functioning. So the engineer,
Can you say what is exactly a chassis for? Because you say they could keep all the components. Does that mean they could keep the
Yes, yeah,
motherboard, everything? So just
the motherboards, the blades, etc.
case,
Just the case.
the server
There was
case, huh?
something wrong. They could not rack mount it anymore, if I recall it correctly.
Okay.
So the guy created an RMA, and a new chassis got shipped. But what the customer did, they shipped everything back, including the components. So what they were left with was just the chassis without any components. Now, luckily, this customer, they had a replacement system already in place. But regardless, they were left with this chassis. And then this whole procedure started to see what we can or should be doing to also get the components back to the customer. Yeah, because these are all functioning and they belong to the customer. They just shipped them by mistake. And the engineer told me, I already have been on a couple of calls, and nobody seems to be able to find a solution for this, which it looks very trivial. And if you use common sense, you would just say, I'm going to pick up the components, put it in a box and ship it to the customer. But, there are so many groups, people involved. It looked to be more complex because of our own procedures than anything else.
You went outside a procedure and then all hell's break loose. There's nothing written anymore. No more procedure for it. And you're stuck,
Exactly,
right?
yeah. And then, he said, we're having a call in just an hour time. Maybe you can join. I said, yeah, I'll join the call and we'll solve it, yeah. So I joined that call, and there is like people from logistics, there are people from entitlement, there are people from sales, there are people from tech. So a whole crowd just to see how we can ship back the components. And after an hour discussion, the only solution people came forward with is that the customer had to create a new sales order. And, then we could process all of that and ship them the components. But you may or may not know, okay, getting a sales order through may take some time. And, it's also not that straightforward and not very intuitive or not very, something you can do easily.
But normally they would also need to pay for it, right? So was there an exception that they could like not pay? And then
Yeah, they agreed, okay, it's going to be a
complicated.
$0 or whatever they call it, $0 sales order. But still, it was too painful to go through this whole process. And I was pushing for another solution, but nobody really listened. So we said, okay, let's close the call and let's rejoin tomorrow again and see if we have another solution. If not, then this we'll have to go for. So we're rejoining the day after, but yeah, it seems that we're still getting to the same solution. But then I don't know why, I just asked some guy, okay, but where are actually these components? Where are they physically? And this guy from logistics tells me, well, actually they're at a logistic depot in Holland. Yeah. And it turned out that depot was just next to the Belgian border where I live actually. So for me, it was actually not too far away. And I say, you know what, if I just now take my car, I drive to the depot, I pick up the components, and I ship it myself to the customer. What do you think about that? And then there was silence on the call, and everybody was looking at each other. And luckily, this guy from logistics, I don't recall exactly anymore who then said, yeah, this looks to be the best solution for the customer, so just go for it, yeah. And that's what we did, yeah. So and I said, well, I need something because I can't just show up there and ask for these components, yeah.
And steal a motherboard, yeah. And it's not going to happen.
And then he said, yeah, I know the person there. I'll write them an email and I'll tell them you're coming, and then you're picking up all of this, and then we can ship it back. So that's what I did literally. After the call, I went to my car and I drove to this depot. But I don't know if you've ever been in these depots, but they're like these huge depots where there are typically only trucks coming, vans, etc. They don't really expect somebody to come with a car. And and not really. That's not what they typically do there. I mean, so I arrived there, and I still remember, there was no parking place in the first place. So there were only parking places for these trucks at these big gates, and I didn't know where to park. So I happened to park then at the parking where all the employees were parking. But to get in, I already had to like piggyback with another car because it was closed. You had to batch in, and then to go out as well. I was locked up in the parking spot, and I had to wait for somebody to actually also exit the parking spot and to go to the office to also piggyback. But that person was already looking at me and he was like asking, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here," etc., etc. I was like, "Yeah, I'm here to pick up something." And then they have this small office next to the depot, and I entered there, but there is like a counter, there's like a desk. But the truck drivers, what they typically do, they have their papers, they put it in the bin. Somebody picks up the papers, processes them, and then like 10 minutes later, they're called out. Yeah, you can go to gate X and pick up your goods there. So, but they were not really expecting to have any conversations with these folks. Yeah. So I arrived there with nothing in my hands. And then I just, I was calling for somebody. So that already took some time before somebody approached me on the desk. And I explained my situation. But from his looks, I could already understand he did not understand anything I was saying. Neither did he understand what is this all about. Yeah. And then he said, "Yeah, you know what? Take a seat there. Wait for a minute. I'll have a look." So I'm waiting there, and I see all these truck drivers passing through, getting their things processed, but nothing happens with me. Nobody calls me. So I'll go back to the counter, and there's nobody anymore. And then I see this guy behind this desk looking at me from time to time behind this screen, and then hiding back again. And I'm thinking, I need that guy. Yeah? So I wave him. I said, come over here. We need to talk about something. I have a question for you. And he's like hesitating. And he comes to me and then he explaining the situation. And I said, listen, I was talking to somebody previously and he told me he would come back to me in like 10 minutes time. And then he said, yeah, this guy went on a lunch break. Yeah. I said, yeah, but what now? Yeah. But then he said, well, actually, I know what you're talking about. But I have a colleague of mine who's like on the second floor here. He's already complaining to me in the past weeks that he has a box at his desk from Cisco and he doesn't know what to do with it. He says, yeah, there are just some hardware components inside, but there are no papers. Nobody gave him any explanation what to do with that box. So he was a bit upset with that. Yeah. I said, well, I need that guy. Yeah? Can you call him? Because I'm here to help him. I'm here to pick up that box for him. Yeah. And so goes. Yeah. So he calls him, and then 10 minutes later, I'm sitting in that small room. This guy enters with the box in his hands, and he looks at me, and I said, "Hey, that's the box I need." But he was clearly upset because I think they also have certain procedures how things work, and this was something he never encountered before. Yeah. So he said, yeah, this box is already at my desk for weeks now. But I've been asking people what to do with it. I don't know what to do with it. Normally I get the paper with it and it tells me exactly what to do, etc., etc. And he goes off like that for a couple of minutes. And I said, I'm from Cisco. I'm here to pick up that box. Something went wrong with it. But he didn't believe me either. Yeah. And then I showed him like the email from my mobile. And he was still hesitating. Yeah? And I said, listen, you know what I do? We can take like a copy of my ID. You will get all my details. And if there is something wrong afterwards, you can always contact me. You know who picked up the box, etc. And I saw him hesitating. And just for that moment, I just took out the box out of his hands. And I said, okay, now I have the box here.
You ran away with it.
And he was like a bit in a shock. I said, don't worry, let's take the copy of my ID, sorry, and my details, and then we're all good, yeah. And then he finally said, okay, good, yeah, let's do that. So I took the box with me. I came back the day after at the Cisco office. I prepared the transport. We have some internal shipping system. And then a couple of days later, the customer had everything he needed so they could rebuild the UCS server. and everybody was happy. Huh? So that's that's what the story was about. Yeah.
It pictures very well the fact that Cisco is a large scale machine, so it's a well-oiled machine. When you stay within the process, it goes very fast and very quickly, and it's very smooth. The logistic chain is a pure miracle in Cisco, but here something unexpected happened, and TAC goes the extra mile and cut the corners for the customer. It kind of raises some security question, right? Were they supposed to allow you to run away with that box? But at the end, it was legitimate and it helped everyone. But then afterwards, we think, okay, how can we improve the process? And we actually improve the process for next time. But I think it's always exceptions, like it's only 0 to 1% of the cases. But TAC is there to cut the corners and make something happen when we're completely outside of the processes. I think to me, that's the TAC culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, excuse me. What I love with this story, it's really going thinking outside of the box to find simple solution. Actually, it's very simple to complex processes that would not have otherwise worked. And reminds me of a few RMA stories when customer shipping back a wrong RMA by accident, a bit like you. It typically goes into a black box. Goes to remanufacturing, repair, destroy in some cases, depending on the type of problem. So it's actually quite lucky that you were able to get the parts back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's sometimes you need some luck, to get things solved, and maybe the next story will be about that. But yeah, in TAC we are always doing whatever is needed to help our customers, and indeed sometimes we have to break processes and procedures.
Excellent first story. I loved it. So simple solution. It's great. Cool. What about the next one?
Well, the next story is more about the same. It's somehow similar, even though there was more troubleshooting involved. So this is about a customer doing an upgrade of their IP telephony solution between Christmas and New Year. Yeah. So and things went wrong. So meaning that they did an upgrade, and after the upgrade, I think they had 50,000 plus endpoints. None of them actually registered anymore. So none of them came online. So nobody could make any phone calls. Now, luckily for the customer and also for us, is that all the sites were closed between Christmas and New Year. So there was no real business impact. And I happened to work at, I think this was the second Christmas day, like the 26th of December. I was actually working that day. And at one point, I get a call from our CAP manager, which is a manager taking care of all escalations, critical accounts, etc. He says, we have this situation here with this customer, which he explained the whole scenario, and he said, the TAC engineer who's currently involved, he doesn't seem to be able to find a solution. So can you help here? So I did, I went to the TAC engineer, we talked about the problem, and we started to troubleshoot. But what actually turned out is that the customer was from a security perspective, they were very well organized and they did everything very well, meaning that they also hardened their IP phones in such a way that you had no access to the web UI, so you could not see what was happening on the phone. You could not see the logs on the phone itself, and neither could you get any logs from the phone. So we were actually clueless on what was happening on the phone, why they were not registering. Yeah. So we had some logs, some data, etc., on the server side, but they're not really telling us what was happening. So we were troubleshooting like the whole day, trying to figure out what was happening, but also trying to downgrade the firmware, which was also failing. So, nothing was really helping us to solve this issue. So at the end of the day, we come together again, like I had a call with the CAP manager, with the developers, BU, etc. But yeah, we were still clueless on what was happening, or even clueless on how to solve this. And then, I said again, from here I can't do anything more, but maybe if I go on site, I get some more insights, because sometimes when you see things happening in front of you, things open up. You come to insights that you were not having before. So everybody, well, let's do that then. Yeah. So I went to home. I packed my bags. I jumped in my car, And I drove to the customer. Now the customer for me was like 600 kilometers away. So I drove most of the night. So arriving there early morning, had some small breakfast, and then I went to this customer office. Now, the office itself was closed, so there was nobody. But this is a huge site, like really a huge office. So I still remember me arriving there, and calling the engineer from the customer, saying, I arrived here. Can you pick me up? And I see him coming through this big hall, like literally 50 meters away from me. I see him opening a door, and he has to walk through the hall, and then he opens the door. But I knew him from before. I already worked with him before, and at that time he was always like a nice guy, gentle and very, we could talk. But this time, he said, before I could say anything, he said, "Philip, do you know where I'm normally supposed to be now?" I said, No. I should be with my family in the Alps skiing. But instead, I'm still troubleshooting this problem here, which, is caused by Cisco. And I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I'm sorry about that, but I'm here to help you.
That raises the question, should you do an upgrade or a major change in such a shutdown period? It's maybe not a good idea.
Yeah. That's then after effects, but yeah, it's always a question, when to perform an upgrade. But anyhow, we then, it's like a very beautiful office. But instead of bringing me to some of these nice areas, he brought me to this to the basement, and we were walking like for 5 or 10 minutes to finally arrive at a small room where he actually had put like papers with all the details how to access their system. And I still see the picture in front of me. There was a table with one Ethernet cable and one phone having the problem. So I arrived there, I put my laptop on the table, I connected my laptop with the Ethernet cable, and I started to connect to their system and started to troubleshoot. So initially, I could only see the same things I was already seeing when troubleshooting from the office, from Cisco office. But one thing I had now, which I did not have before, I could take like a packet capture as well. Yeah? So I could actually see these phones, they go through a certain sequence to finally register with a system like a call manager. So I could see all of that happening in the packet capture, but for some reason the phone was constantly cycling through that. Yeah? But still, even though I could see that, I could still not see the root cause. Neither I could think of any solution to this. Yeah, the phone was simply constantly rebooting all the time, going through the sequence over and over again, and not registering with the call manager. Now I had one person in the TAC office who was doing some tests for me, and we were constantly discussing. But it was already after lunchtime. There was nothing to eat, so I told him, "Listen, guy, I need to eat something, because I'm really getting hungry," and etc. He said, "Yeah, everything is closed." I said, "Yeah, but is it actually nothing here?" He said, "Yeah, there is like a candy machine, like a snack machine. Maybe we can pick up a Mars or a Snicker there." So we went there. I had the Snicker, and I don't know if it was because of the sugar, but when I arrived back at the same desk, I looked again at the same sequence, and then I figured out that this phone when it boots up, it's requesting a specific file. Yeah, but that file was something from the old days. When I actually joined Cisco, and something that was no longer used by the latest firmware, but for some reason that phone was still requesting for that file. And I knew from the past that file contained certain firmware information. So I said, well, maybe we can hack into we can hack that file and change the firmware information configured within that file. And let's see, maybe then the phone picks up the new firmware and then everything goes fine. So
But does that mean it was running an old firmware for some reason?
No. It was running a new firmware. But as it goes, there is always some legacy code still embedded within the latest.
Yeah.
And even though it's no longer used, the function may still be there.
Yeah, let's just try it.
Yeah. So and then I asked the guy and my colleague in Brussels. I said to you, can you test this for me? And then like 20 minutes later, he comes back. Yeah, it works. Yeah, I changed the firmware in that file. So now it's picking up the old firmware, and that goes fine. I said, listen, okay, then we have to do the same on this system. But I could not really change that file on their call manager system. So what I ended up doing at the end, this was a Linux-based system. So what I could do, they have an IP tables. So I was actually injecting like a rule that all the traffic from that towards that port was redirected to my laptop. So I spinned up an SFTP or an FTP server on my laptop. I created that file with the firmware information. I placed the older firmware on my laptop. And then, instead of going to the system, all the traffic was redirected to my laptop. And miraculously, or not miraculously, but the phone started to pick up the old firmware and started to register. Yeah. So, obviously it took some time before 50,000 plus endpoints picked up the new firmware. But I think it was towards the end of the afternoon that finally everything was up and running again. And, and the phones were registering again. Yeah. Now, there is like something with this, because afterwards, when I was driving back home, we had a call with the BU and the developers, and they were like, okay, great solution. But then this one developer told me, listen, actually, you're very lucky, because that new file in the next firmware, we will not be requesting that file anymore. That's completely disabled. So actually, because you running into this problem, you were actually able to solve it. So actually, it was because of one problem solving the other problem. Yeah? So it was like sometimes you also have to be lucky in things, I guess.
I have completely unrelated questions. Like, they fed you with a candy bar, but what were they planning on eating?
I don't know what they're planning to eat. I don't think he was planning to stay that long in the office. Yeah.
It was supposed to be a quick
exactly.
fix.
Yeah, exactly.
But what was the actual root cause? So it was an issue in the firmware, so other people could have faced the same
The
problem?
root cause at the end was a new defect they were running into. Yeah, so they were running into a new defect. I don't remember the exact details, but we had a new defect raised, have it fixed, and then released a new firmware so they could upgrade. Yeah. Now the upgrade of their system went fine, so their whole system upgraded fine. It was just that after the upgrade, these endpoints were not registering.
That to me, that depicts very well the thought process we go through when we have a high severity case. First you try the root cause, but at some point it's like, okay, the whole network is down. We have to fix it. Here is Christmas shutdown. Like, let's just fix it no matter what. And then you enter a mode. Let's just try anything creative, right? Let's come up with the most random ideas. If they fix it, we just don't care. We'll think about the root cause later, and we'll work on it, later to make sure it doesn't happen again. But the priority is to fix it. So sometimes you have to think outside of the box and stop, thinking, why is it in a loop? Why is it in a loop? Let's just try something else. And maybe you get it unstuck. And also that gives you some ideas about the root cause, maybe, and so on.
Yeah, exactly. I think severity one type of issues, the first priority is always restoring service. There you do whatever it takes, to restore service.
Yeah. It's sometimes tricky because if you go literally straight away to whatever it takes, you may not have enough info for the root cause. So you still need to look at the root cause and get the logs at the right moment. So it's a tough balance sometimes. Like, you need to be up and running as quickly as possible, but you also need to get the logs right for the right forensics. So it's not always easy. I have another question. It's kind of back to is it a good idea to upgrade in that period? You said that they had secured the web server access on the phones, etc., which, can seem like a good idea, right? We don't want to have a web server on each phone, but that's also how you manage the phone. You can manage a single phone through its web interface, and that's also how you troubleshoot it. Do you often get stuck by this balance of too much security, and it prevents you to troubleshoot basic issues? Like, it becomes an obstacle when you have too much security. Are there workarounds for it, or?
Yeah, this happens. Yeah, obviously, if you're the more security, the less access you have to certain resources. Yeah, and you need certain roles or whatever, to get access to that. But it's not only about that. I think also for many customers, sometimes also sharing data and logs is problematic, yeah, because there is some
Sensitive,
PII
yes.
sensitive information inside there. But I think these are things we have to adopt to, because this is key and important for our customers. So that also means that we need to think sometimes differently around serviceability, and maybe come up with new ways to troubleshoot, or to new ways or enhancements to how we generate logs, how we generate alarms, alerts, etc., so that we can still troubleshoot those problems. Yeah. So I think overall this is just increasing as we go.
I think that's one of the key job of technical leaders in tech, is to rethink serviceability to meet these new obstacles. So we have to be secure, but we also need to keep a good level of logging and I mean, to ease the ease of troubleshooting. But we have to pay attention to those private data and do things securely. I think that there's the same problem in other technology with SSH or console access that is more and more restricted by default, because it's not all right to have a device with console access and no authentication on it. I mean, that doesn't make any sense by today's standards. But then you have customers that are stuck, right? They have an issue, the device is not accessible, they cannot troubleshoot it anymore.
Yeah.
While we have to think from a Cisco perspective about how to improve serviceability, I think what the customers can maybe take away is they also need to think about backup plan. So they say, oh, we disable SSH to these devices for safety reason, good. But then what if you have an issue, right? One of the possible workaround would be, oh, it's all right because we have a syslog configured, so the logs are sent via syslog. So we have secure syslog in place and we get the logs anyway. Then good, right? You don't need that SSH because you have the logs in another way. Like, you have to think for that product, what is the alternative? Or, is there the possibility to have a console server to plug in, if we have a technician on site, like what are the possibilities in case things go really, really bad? You cannot always afford, every solution, but at least have a plan. Think about it in advance, because we have too many customers. They just get stuck at, oh, we don't have access to that box, and that box is 1,000 miles away from the closest technical person. It's like, oops.
Yeah, definitely agree on that. Yeah.
Okay. So, as you know, Philip, we try to end each episode and learn, at least ask a few questions to learn more about a given technology, to become smarter a bit every day. My question for you would be, can you summarize to us what is the current status of collaboration? And that's such a broad question. And where are we going? Because my perspective from a regular enterprise dude who just used phones, right? You still have people using endpoint IP phones now, but there is a lot more software phones, which is WebEx, for example, and other similar applications. So people are using it on the laptop a lot more than in the past. And we moved towards the cloud as well with WebEx and all the cloud offerings, etc. And now there's a big push for AI as well. But is it correct to say that we still have all the possible customers? Because you have customers who still need to have shared lines and have physical phones. There's now a lot more different types of customers and different needs, right, than before.
Yeah, exactly. I think the landscape has changed drastically over the past years. I think, first of all, what you already have mentioned, customers are moving their on-prem UC workflows to cloud. Yeah, where before you may had like your call manager, contact center, messaging, video conferencing units deployed on premises. Now we have that available in our WebEx cloud, where we have WebEx messaging, meeting, calling, contact center, and so forth. So that's clearly one thing that is happening. And in addition to that, the channels through which we communicate have been expanded, has been extended as well. Where before you were picking up typically a phone and making a call, today you have chat, you have online meetings, you have video. So there are different ways to communicate with amongst ourselves. And I think maybe one thing as well with the on-prem versus the cloud, we clearly see that that transitioning is happening and is accelerating. But at the same time, you always have certain customers who need to stay on-prem for various reasons, but they are still connecting some of their services to the cloud, so they live more in a hybrid world. So that's also a given or a fact. And I think lately, at least in the past year, I think we all have experienced the AI buzz. all the buzz around AI. Everybody's talking about AI. But I think if I look today, what we are planning or already have available in WebEx, it's already beyond the buzz. These are already real capabilities or features that we have released or are planning to release that will be helping our customers. And one of them is maybe the WebEx AI codec. And why is this important? I think we have all experienced, and we actually experienced this just before this call, that you sometimes have choppy voice and choppy video, right? And that's not always in the control of the service provider or in your control, because it can be caused by many different reasons. Yeah? There can be many different reasons why you have choppy voice, etc. But with this WebEx,
like the Wi-Fi, it's always the Wi-Fi.
It's always a Wi-Fi or the firewall. Yeah. Anyhow, this WebEx AI codec can actually provide high quality audio and video on a bandwidth which is 16 times less than it was before. So that is significant. And in addition to that, it can recover from packet drop, latency, and so forth, much more than it was able to do before. So I think all of this will help our customers to have more quality meetings and more quality video calls and so forth by using the WebEx AI codec.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have this notion of what we call real-time media models, which is actually a combination of these audio-video channels with large language models. So this is generative AI, and there are various features that we have in the pipeline in the backlog. But one of them is, which I find cool, is that what they call this "be right back" feature. I think you all have been in a meeting where you're working from home, and suddenly there is this courier ringing your doorbell, dropping off a package. Yeah, but you're in this meeting, yeah, and then you're doubting, okay, should I go or not? And maybe it's a package for your wife, maybe it's her birthday or whatever, so it's an important package. Anyhow, so you have to step out, and then you step in again, so you lost some of the meeting. So with this "be right back" feature, the system will actually detect you stepped away from your desk, and instead it can give like a coffee cup icon, so people know that you stepped away. But then when you come back to the meeting, it can do like a recap of what happened while you were gone. Yeah, so it can give you some of the highlights, the things that were discussed, and maybe certain actions that have to be taken. Now, obviously, that can also be used when you're going on PTO. So you could actually say, I was on PTO yesterday. Can you give me a summary of the meetings I missed? Yeah? So that same system can provide you that, and I think that's really cool, because we all have been in this during the shutdown period. We have been away for 1 or 2 weeks, and it happened to me yesterday. That we had to continue a conversation we stopped before the Christmas period, and I somehow didn't remember exactly what was going on. So we could use that feature to quickly catch up again on what was discussed there, and pick up the highlights and continue the conversation.
To be honest, I knew about 2 AI features: the live transcript and the live translations. And a lot of companies say, "Oh yeah, we're doing AI, etc." And it's just marketing. I was already bluffed by the quality of that transcript and translation. I didn't know about the features you mentioned, so I'm quite bluffed, to be honest. It sounds really, really
cool. You can go to,
because the amount of meetings where people don't send meeting minutes, that freaks me out. I always want to have meeting minutes, and if I don't take them, people don't take them. So that sounds really, really productive.
Yeah, you can go to webex.ai. So some of the things I talked about, they will be released in the upcoming months. But yeah, it's clearly the direction we're heading to, and there's much more. That will just increase the overall experience of our customers, or when you're on a meeting, when you have chat conversations, and so forth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And to me, to come back on the first AI feature you mentioned, the codec optimizing the voice quality, it's just crazy how having a good, clear voice in video conversation makes the difference. When you have crappy voice quality or chopping, jitter, and all that happening, it basically breaks the point of the meeting because you just keep people to repeat. You spend time in just trying to understand what they mean, and it gets unclear. You get mad. No, the voice quality thing is really underestimated. So this is really, for me, a game changer. The other feature is also super cool, but this is really cool.
Yeah. I think the voice and video quality has always been number one priority, for us. But I think with this codec, we really can further enhance and optimize that. But yeah, I think we're sometimes in meetings one after the other. Yeah, we live in this hybrid world. You're working from home, from the office, etc. So this becomes key and critical. Yeah, because otherwise you lose focus and you get frustrated and so forth.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are many other cool features. Another one I really like and is about for contact center agents. Yeah, I mean, imagine you're a contact center agent, and today, customers may not only reaching out to you via the phone, but also through chat. So with this WebEx AI assistant, the assistant within the given context can generate an answer to the customer question for the engineer. And then the engineer has some for the agent. And then the agent has some overwatch, can review, what the system actually has generated, and just has to click send. Yeah. So imagine how much productive that would be for that agent, and how much helpful that would be, for that whole conversation. Right. And we can do live translation as well on the fly. So all of that, I think the whole Gen AI thing has opened up for many new and different cool features for ourselves, but also for our customers, obviously.
Yeah, default language is English, but there's a lot of customers who are very technical in their language, but either they're shy and they don't really prefer to talk English. Then we have to work via chat mostly because they don't like to talk on WebEx. And those type of features, to me, they're really helpful.
Yeah.
And that's just for the language perspective. People with disabilities as well, I mean, that's super helpful to them. The amount of people who will benefit from this, I think, is crazy.
Yeah, and talking about language, I'm not natively English, and sometimes you'd start typing a message, which for a native speaking, English speaking person may be not so nice formulated or whatever. Yeah. So, there will also be a feature which can somehow change the tone of that message, which may tell you, listen, maybe you need to formulate that message in this way, because then it's not so aggressive or whatever. Yeah? So that's also cool. Yeah.
I need a tool to remove my sarcasm. Whenever I write something, it should remove the sarcasm from my sentence and then send it. That's the next step. Okay, Tristan, you have any more questions?
I think I'm good. It was super interesting. Very good to hear from the collab world and 2 interesting stories. So thank you, Philip, once again. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Cisco Tech Stories podcast. You can subscribe to us on Cisco Podcast Network and SoundCloud or in your favorite podcasting app. You can also find us on X at Cisco Tech Story without S. Thanks again for listening, and speak to you next month.
Your voice is breaking up.
Was that a joke or was that true?
Yeah.